Go ahead, Bob.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Phightin Words. Anthony SanFilippo is here. I'm Bob Wankel. Welcome in. Monday morning, Phillies take 2 out of 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Third straight series win. Phillies 19-14 this morning, 2.5 games behind the New York Mets in the National League East. And I feel like that this has been a common thread throughout the entirety of this season, Anthony, but they take care of business. They do what they're supposed to do. You should feel great about it. And yet there's this like looming annoyance kind of hovering over the whole thing. And yesterday was a fun game. It was an interesting game. They showed some fight coming back down 7-1. You feel like they're going to win it. You're going to get your broom out. And then extra innings happens and everyone feels miserable again. So it's just kind of what it is with this team right now. You can tell me why we should feel good about it or why we shouldn't. But here we are.
Well, I mean, I think we should feel better about the way things went this weekend than you and I feel about, having our show start the proper way here on Phightin Words, thanks to our good buddy who, Russ, who's a little late getting everything set up for us this morning. And so we just said, screw it, we're going live. But all told, it was a good weekend for the Phillies. There was a lot of good this weekend. Even though there are still some frustrations, and I think that those frustrations will linger into the summer. I mean, they are what they are. All told, though, that's a good series win. That Diamondbacks team just went up to Citi Field and won a series against the Mets prior to coming down to Citizens Bank Park, and then the Phillies beat them 2 out of 3, and almost pulled off the sweep. I mean, you gotta. Look, we're going to probably give Ranger a little bit of a pass. His first start of the season, there was, he was okay out of the windup, but struggled out of the stretch. Like, there's things that we're going to need to see different going forward with him. But you get down 7-1, and you're almost like chalking that one up like, okay, it was going to be tough to sweep this team anyway. His first start, whatever. They're going to still take 2 out of 3. And then they fight and claw their way back. And you sit there and go, oh, man, this team really wants this sweep. They really want to take this thing. And even though they don't get it in the end, I think that they showed you a little bit of something that maybe you hadn't seen yet this year out of this team. A little bit of moxie, a little bit of personality that we've been complaining has been missing. And so I think that those are all positives that you could take away from the weekend and say, okay, good outcome for the Phillies.
In the middle of that game yesterday, it was the first time I think they had panned to Kyle Schwarber at one point. He was up on the railing, kind of like hitting the rail. Like, it was the first time I felt like that they had some, not that they don't like lack belief in themselves, or not that they don't want to win, or not that there's not energy like internally, but just the way that as a fan, like sitting at home, you can see it. You could tell they were feeling it a little bit as that comeback was mounting. And I guess my question is, like, if you watch yesterday, they come up short, they make a number of miscues late. How much of that should we really kind of latch onto and be like, see, yeah, like that's the whole thing with this team. Like, you can't execute when it really matters. And there were some defensive issues. And, did you have to have Schwarber running around left field yesterday? Max Kepler seriously couldn't have started that game. He's one of the best hitters in the National League right now. Like, there's always something to kind of pick apart. And there's always something anytime a team loses to pick apart. I think that I've been inclined to want to do that this season. I think that that's where I immediately tend to go. Yesterday, I felt like, yeah, they did some things that were annoying, like Trea Turner's at bat late in the 9th inning, swinging at a pitch at his throat. Terrible at bat. Harper can't get on base ahead of Schwarber. Then Schwarber hits the home run. The double play, Turner can't make the throw or throws a grenade over to first base. Like, there's a ton of things. I guess, though, as I watched it, 2 out of 3 against the Diamondbacks, pretty good. Sweep was there. Could have been had. They didn't do it. I can't get on here this morning ranting and raving about this team, though, after that.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, Bob. And, I'll tell you one that bothered me, and it had nothing to do with yesterday, but yesterday was an example of why it should have been done previously in the game that they lost to Washington. If you remember, we lamented Rob Thompson's decision to not bat for Max Kepler against Jose Ferrer. In the 6th inning of that game when they had 1st and 3rd, and he ends up striking out. And it was like, well, you have right-handed bats on the bench, and then you got Weston Wilson come up yesterday and have a good game, right? And not only that, Weston Wilson comes up and hits a home run. I think it was off a righty when he hit the home run. And so like you're looking at this guy can hit the ball hard against both guys, right? You have a good bat on the bench there. Why wasn't he used a few games ago when the opportunity was there to steal a run or two, and you didn't take advantage of it? So like that. So even the fact that yesterday something good happened,
you just woke up the beast. I wasn't going to do it. But, so you don't use Wilson in that spot for Kepler, but then he sort of redeems himself and comes up with a big hit the next night against the lefty, and you go, okay, well, then maybe he can handle lefties. Maybe Rob's vindicated a day late. Fine. But then you look at yesterday's game, like you said, Kepler's swinging it right now. In his career against Eduardo Rodriguez, he's 6 for 17 with 2 homers. 353 lifetime, slugging 765 against him, and he gets a day off. Ahead of a day off.
And then on top of that, not only is he getting the day off, but it's a day you decide that Bryce Harper is going to get off his feet.
Yeah.
So why isn't Max Kepler in the field? Like that's like you could have easily put Schwarber at first base or whatever.
And Schwarber, bless his heart, but he's limited and it shows up. It doesn't take long, right? You think, come on, we just have Kyle Schwarber run around out there for a game. You can hide that. You can't hide it.
Yeah,
it's impossible to hide.
It's impossible to hide. Not only that, and then look, I don't want to take a shot at Castellanos because I don't think he ever had a chance on the ball. But if you had a functional defensive right fielder, that double down the line is probably caught.
Yeah.
Right? Like a really good, like a rangy, I should say, not functional. He is functional.
He is functional.
That's a bad word. I used a bad word there. But if you had a rangy right fielder in that spot, it probably catches the ball. Question we got coming in from King Alfred's U.S. descendant says, was Thompson right about the Real Muto play at third? Did Real Muto have no clear path to the base? The answer to that question is probably yes, but it doesn't matter. Real Muto can't go to third unless 100% you're absolutely going to make it.
Yeah, and in fairness, we killed Johan Rojas for extending that double into a triple the other night, and you just can't do it. That's the thing that we said. That's part of the reason with him that you get frustrated, or that's part of the reason that you get down on him because he doesn't understand situations. JT Realmuto knows better. He cannot do that in that spot. He's a killer, and I will say that one of my biggest things about yesterday was that they did claw back and they actually made some self-inflicted mistakes that a lot of times will kill that momentum and kill those rallies. And they were still able to overcome it to the point where they were able to force extras. And so there is something to be said for that against a quality opponent, especially. And I tend to skew negative and go dude, who cares about all that? Win the game, make the plays when they need to be made. And that's there for me. But I just think that my bigger takeaway after yesterday was, all right, look, they really went through a period where they did not play well. You've won 6 of your last 9 games, 3 straight series wins. These opponents are not pushovers. Everything's okay here. You're 5 games over 500 this morning, or 4 games over 500. Were they 19 and 15? Correct. 2.5 games out. They're not buried. They're directionally fine. Okay. There's a lot to talk about.
They actually picked up ground in the standings yesterday, even though they lost because the Mets got swept in a doubleheader by St. Louis.
Yeah, they're cooling off a little bit now, obviously.
A little bit. Yeah.
It's interesting. So much gets made about the way that these guys start and how much it frames our overall perception of how they're doing. And you look at the box score after yesterday's game, and I would say that generally speaking, there's a thought here that, Nick Castellanos has gotten off to a solid start. He had 2 more hits yesterday. But then you look at it and you're like, Nick Castellanos has a 743 OPS right now. Johan Rojas, by comparison, has a 756 OPS and fewer bats, granted. And I don't frame this to pump up what Johan Rojas has done offensively, but I think it's sort of interesting. You wrote about Trea Turner and how he's doing exactly what Rob Thompson asked him to do. I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
But it's to me right now, there's a bunch of guys on this team where you're like, it's not bad, but it's not good. And there's some guys that I think we think are doing well that aren't doing quite as well as we think they are. And then there are some guys that aren't playing well, but it's not as bad as we think it is. It feels like that they have a lot of that up and down this roster right now.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, there is a lot of that. And the thing of it is, and what's really the hardest thing to do, Bob, is to kind of piece through what we've seen through 34 games and determine which ones are, when it's good, it's that's what they are, or is that a smokescreen, and vice versa. When they're not going well, are they bad, or is that just they're going through it, right? Like if we went guy by guy, I think you get different answers for each guy. Like we don't think Bryce Harper is going to continue to struggle like he struggled prior to yesterday. Obviously, he had 2 hits, home run yesterday, although he doesn't come through at the end of the game. But you sit there and you look at Bryce Harper is Bryce Harper. He's going to get better. Like we've seen this before, and he turns it around and gets better. But you look at Johan Ross, you say, is Johan Ross a 300 hitter? Like probably not. But hey, while he's doing it, you take it, you accept it, right? And we'll get into the Turner thing here in a minute, but they're a conundrum when it comes to analysis sometimes, because you don't want to get too excited about when they're going well, because there's going to be regression, but you also don't want to beat them into a pulp when they're not going well, because there's probably going to be improvement from some guys. It's just a matter of determining which one falls into which category.
All right. Before we get to the Turner thing, then let me ask you, or let's go through this.
Yeah.
There is so much that I think you said it perfectly. You don't really know how to evaluate what you're watching. Is it better than what it is? Is it worse than what it is? What is this going to look like 30 days from now? Do you agree or disagree with the following? Because these are the things I believe about the Phillies through 34 games. And I will have a hard time moving off of it. And some of it goes contrary to what we've seen, and some of it I think is validated by what we've seen. I think that the Phillies have one of the 3 best starting rotations in the sport. Do you agree with that?
I do. I do agree with that, yes.
Do you believe that the Phillies have a bottom 5 bullpen?
No, I think it's a little bit better than that, but I don't think it's top half of the league by any
I don't either. So I think they have a top 3 rotation. I think that they have a bottom 12 bullpen. Like if you said, where do you think this thing really slots in? And if you look at some of the more advanced metrics, I think you're probably talking about the 17th to 20th best bullpen. It's not good. I think it's much closer to the bottom than it is to the top.
Right.
Is this a bottom 10 defensive team? I don't believe this. I am.
I don't know. Well, so here's the thing. So like, I have a hard time.
I think it's an atrocious defensive team.
I don't think they're a good defensive team. I don't want to diminish what you're saying. What I'm saying is that I have a hard time ranking them, because we watch them every game, right? And so we see the deficiencies in a more focused and glaring manner, whereas every other team, we watch, but we don't watch them every game, and so therefore it's hard to determine where they fit. Are they a bad bottom half for sure, probably bottom third, yes, but I can't sit there and say exactly where they rank.
And I'll just go back to what we talked about last week, and I always put the qualifier on it. It is not the end all be all, and defensive metrics are very complicated. But if you just look through basically most of their advanced defensive scores, like defensive run saved, they're 28th, -20. Only the Angels and Athletics worse so far. And you go position by position. You're like, well, JT's still solid. Sure, I agree. Bryce Harper made the error last week or non-error or whatever the hell it was. It blew up that inning against the Nationals. Generally speaking, though, good first baseman. Hasn't been as good, I don't think, this year, but still a quality first baseman. Bryson Stott, an above average defensive second baseman. Castellanos, when the ball's hit to him, sure-handed. And he makes some nice plays occasionally, but he's limited in terms of range. We saw that yesterday. I don't think that Brandon Marsh is a good defensive center fielder, and I think that Johan Rojas has the ability to do it when he puts everything together. But I would need to see more consistency to say that the Phillies have above average defense out of their center field position when you take Marsh and Rojas and put them together. And despite Rojas mania right now, he's not going to get 80% of the starts here on out for the rest of the season, regardless of whether or not he's hitting 302. He's just not. They're They're going to continue to platoon these guys. They're going to continue to protect Johan Rojas. That's what's going to happen. So are they above average in center field? No. I think they're average at best. Left field, Kepler, he's okay. He's all right. But then I come back to third and shortstop. And it's so bad on the left side of the infield that I can't get over it. Like, any ground ball to the left side of the infield is an absolute adventure all the time. And I know that Trea Turner works hard at it. I heard Scott Fransky on with Joe Giglio and Hugh Douglas Friday. It's like, Trea work, and Scott's thing was like, you guys, radio guys, fans, we like to harp on this stuff with Turner. He works really hard. He's actually been better this season. Okay. I guess my response to that would be like, for $30 million a year, like, you should work hard at it. And like, you should try hard. And I know he wants to play good defense. It's not a personal attack, but when you just look at what the guy's done at shortstop defensively, it doesn't work. He's not good enough. It's terrible. And then you have the third baseman, who I'm so tired of talking about, on top of it. I mean, it's bad over there. So I believe that this is a very poor defensive team. Are they the third worst in the sport? Maybe not. Are they a bottom 10 defense? I think so. I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's probable. It's probable. I just like, I like to have some sort of way of measuring specifics versus other teams. I mean, I know what I see, and I see exactly what you see too. And I'm not going to disagree with you on any of it. I think everything that you said is spot on accurate. It's just that, not watching every other team every game, it's hard to sit
where they
say,
get plus defense? On the mound from their starting pitchers.
Their starting pitchers
defensively. Walker's very good. Wheeler's very good. Suarez, we know, is very good. I mean, that's kind of, that's a plus.
Yeah.
But so then let's go back and recap this then. Elite starting pitching, a below average relief pitching, below average defense. I think it's pretty easy to agree on those. I guess I'd be surprised if we had listeners right now going, I don't agree with those assessments. The thing that gets complicated is, what is this offense? And that's what I have no idea. I have no idea. I've come on the show and I said, I don't think that Johan Rojas is a Major League Baseball player. He's hitting over 300 right now. And he's done a really nice job offensively. He has been far better than what I could have ever imagined him to be. I also don't believe that it's going to continue. And that may be unfair, and I might look like an idiot. I look like an idiot right now. And there are people like letting me hear that on Twitter, and that's cool. Like, I get it. Like, awesome. I've been wrong a million times before. I'm not a baseball scout. I'm just telling you that I don't believe in his offensive game. And if it continues, like, I'll be a convert. Like, I'll come around. I don't know what this offense is. I look at it sometimes and I go, I could see how this is like a top 10, top 12 offense. And then sometimes I look at it and go, like, are they old? Are they over the hill? Is that all it is? And I'm going to segue into exactly what you wrote about this weekend. It comes down to Trea Turner. There are obviously other things, but Trea Turner is so important to the overall assessment and evaluation of this offense. And I'll start by, saying this. If I tweeted out, I shared on our show account the story that you wrote for On Pattison over the weekend. But prior to yesterday, in which he went 1 for 6, conveniently, Trea Turner was hitting .483 over his previous 7 games. His chase rate was down by like 6% year over year. I think it dropped from like 33 to 27%. And he's doing exactly what Rob Thompson asked him to do before the year, which was be more disciplined, get on base more, try to be like a 370, 380 on base percentage guy. And he's, for the most part, checked those boxes. On the flip side of it, I mean, like, look, I have his yearly projections here. He's projected to have 181 hits. That's great. 29 doubles, man, and 5 home runs, and knocking 52 runs. What is this guy?
Yeah, that's not the kind of production you want out of your 2-hole, or even leadoff. I mean, when he leads off against lefties, ultimately he's got to be better than that. And that was the interesting thing. Like, so I'm going to take you through the dichotomy of this story that I wrote, because I was just kind of curious. I thought I was going to talk to Trea before I talked to Rob. And Trea was, not just didn't happen to be in the clubhouse really. I mean, he was in there just getting dressed, and then he went out to do some pregame work. So I was like, all right, I'll talk to Rob first. And there was at no point when I was asking Rob a question about Trea Turner, did I ever conceive that Rob Thompson would give me the specific answer that he gave to that question. That answer floored me. Okay. And it floored a bunch of other people that were standing there too, because Rob never answers questions like that. And Rob says, in case people didn't see it, and I'm paraphrasing slightly here, but basically he said he sat down with Trea Turner before the season and he said, I don't care about home runs. I want you to go up there, get on base, right? And his goal was 380. That was the goal that he set. He wants him to get on base at a 380 clip, wants him to steal 40 bases and score 100 runs. If he does all those things, he doesn't care about the home runs. And I think that, I mean, again, it was a surprise because you don't usually hear guys talk about goals and specific goals like that. And I think what the message really was that you got a little home run happy. Let's stop being so home run happy and focus on the other thing. And oh, by the way, the home runs will come when they come. Turner has taken it to the extreme, though, to the point where he's only hitting singles. And he's basically Ben Revere for $300 million.
Damn it.
Right?
Did I text you that name or did you just come up with that? Or I used that name?
No, you did not use that name.
Oh my. It's funny. I kid you not. And I wish we had the technology to do this. I have Ben Revere's baseball reference page open on my screen right now because when you were done, was going to make the comparison that, yeah, you know what? Ben Revere hit 303 for the Phillies over 3 years as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. And so I took Rob's quote. I'm like, all right, now I really got to talk to Trea about this. And so when Trea was taking BP and they take like, I don't know, 5 rounds. They go in the cage, hit like 5 times through, and then they're done. The first 4 rounds, it was all line drive singles. I mean, every one of them, boom, up the middle, opposite field. Like you could tell it was an intentional thing that he was doing because the last round was all tanks to the seats in left field, right? So he was 80% of it was I'm going to do what the team wants, and 20% of it was I'm going to prove I can still hit home runs. Okay, great. And so I pull him aside, and the first question I ask him is about that. And I said to him, and this was at the time that I interviewed him, it was only 20 hits in 12 games. It's now 23 hits in his last 14 games. But at the time I said, Trea, you have 20 hits in your last 12 games. 18 of them are singles. I said, do you look at that as a player and go, okay, that's pretty good? Or do you sit there and go, yeah, but I'm not getting the slug that I want to get, and it's frustrating you? And he was frustrated. And he said most of those hits were soft. These are his quotes. I'm not, I put them in the story. You can read it on Patterson. Like he said, my hits have been soft. I've not felt good about it. And I said, well, all right, Rob just told us that he had this conversation with you, and this is what he wants out of you. And he's like, well, yeah, I want to achieve that 380. That's a goal, but I want to be a complete player. And I know I can hit home runs. I know I can hit doubles. And so he said that. And then I said, well, is it uncomfortable? Like that you're doing these things that the Phillies are asking you to do? And he said, yes. Like I couldn't believe how honest this whole thing was going. I was like, this is unbelievable. And he said, yeah, it was uncomfortable. He said, but he's finally, again, this is paraphrasing, I've made peace with the fact that the game has changed in the last 5 years and that he gets pitched differently now than he used to when he was, with the Washington Nationals, and teams were at the time afraid to put him on base because Bryce Harper was batting behind him. He said, now guys they're not afraid to make you chase. They're not afraid of making you walk. That's what they want. And that's what they're taught to do. And so I gotta put it in my head. And he says, it's a mental thing. I have to convince myself that it's okay to not to be swinging as much as I'm swinging. Like the whole thing was a fascinating conversation. So I put it down in writing. And now the question that I have is, where does it go from here? Because are we okay with him being a 300 hitter who doesn't hit doubles?
No, we're not okay with him being a 300 hitter. No.
Right? Or do you say, okay, hit 275, but hit 20 home runs? Like what's where?
So this draws back to the conversation we had last week, though, talking about the team-wide approach. Hey, look, we want you to swing at fewer pitches outside of the zone, and we want you to be more disciplined, and we want you to draw more walks, and that's all going to be part of our emphasis coming into this season. And I asked you, hey, does it actually have to be one at the expense of the other? Can you be more disciplined while still being aggressive situationally and do the damage that you're capable of doing? Or does that come at the sacrifice of doing damage? And I think that he is the player that exemplifies this question or this potential problem more so than anybody. I mean, look, you go just from last year, which was a solid year for him. He had 295, he had an 807 OPS. It's not like he was an elite level player, but not bad. But you look at the on-base percentage jump year over year, 338 in 2024, 371, and it was higher. It was almost 10 percentage points higher prior to yesterday. You take that jump every day of the week. But his slugging has dropped from 469 to 367. Like you can look at the batting average, and I know Philadelphia and Phillies fans love batting average. Like they're in love with batting average. And 297 is awesome. I think that right now, amongst all qualified shortstops in baseball, it's the third highest batting average. That's great. You can't have 738 OPS. Like that's not a difference maker. And I know that shortstops can be a little bit lighter hitting, and so that probably, and I don't have it in front of me, probably ranks top 10 still. But like that's not what you were paying him to do.
Right.
You're paying him to be a difference maker. And I think it's possible that he can thread the needle, that he can find some balance. Like it is only 34 games in. And when you ask, I know it sounds crazy, like 34 games, figure it out, buddy. But when you fundamentally ask a player to change his mentality and maybe even something from a mechanical standpoint, it can take time before you find that right balance. So do I think it's possible that Trea Turner, being as athletically gifted as he is and has had the success that he's had, can figure it out and blend these two things? I do. But I think that the question is, was that what we saw from him last year? Like, was what we saw from Trea Turner now kind of the best version of Trea Turner, which is he hit 295. Yes, his on-base percentage was only 338, but he did slug 469, which was the highest it's been since 2021. Like, I kind of think that 2024 Trea Turner might be the best version of Trea Turner at this point.
Well, let me ask you this question, Bob. And you know, you've coached obviously at a high school level. It's a little bit different than coaching the majors, but let's look at it from this perspective. So, what you saw from Trea Turner last year, and you say that might be the best version of him, and if it is, that's fine. And now what you're seeing is something that's a completely different thing. What if there is that middle ground? And what if you say to him, "Hey, listen, we don't mind that you're swinging for some home runs from time to time. We just don't want you chasing balls out of the zone." Right? So, can we keep that chase rate down, which is, by the way, below league average right now? Trea Turner's chase rate is below league average, when in the last 3 seasons he's been amongst the highest in the league. Like he was chasing, over 33% the last 3 years. But can you say, stop chasing pitches out of the zone, but when you get pitches to hit, it's okay to turn on one every once in a while. You don't have to slap it the other way, right? Is it okay to try and rip a ball down the line or shoot a ball into the gap instead of just, kind of flaring it out over the second baseman's head or the shortstop's head? Like, is it okay to find
in an ideal world, what is the home run output for Trea Turner in your mind?
20,
and that's 25. Reasonable. Yeah. I would make the point, though, you go back and look at the early part of his career up through 2021, or up through 2020. And obviously that was a shortened season. He really didn't start to find the power, though, until 20. And like, granted, like there's been injury issues, but go back to 2018, 162 games played. He hit 19 homers and had a 760 OPS. Like it's never been like, he's never really had that season where I think that, and this is like my fault, I think, to a degree, but I go back and I look at his 21 season, and the way I'm looking at it right now, it's split up between Washington and LA, but 148 games played. And I believe, he had 28 home runs that year, and his OPS was over 900. Like, that was the best optimal peak version of Trea Turner. It was 4 years ago.
By the way, just for the Philadelphia fans who love batting average, He led the league in hitting that year at 328.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just saying.
And then you look at it, though, like in 23-24, he became more of a home run guy. Like he hit 26 homers in 2023. And then in 24, he only plays 120 games. So he was on basically a 27-28 home run pace last year, barring injury. I guess my point is, like, if he hits anywhere between 17 to 20 home runs, I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need Trea Turner to be a 30 home run guy, but I can't have him be a 5 home run guy.
No, there needs to be a middle ground, and I think that's what, to his credit. I mean, like,
and like we're not talking about, if he were here right now, he might be like, "Well, guys, here's the thing that you don't know because you're talking heads and idiots." But I think the general premise of what I'm bringing here, he'd be like, "Yeah, I can't be a 5 home run guy. That's not what I'm about."
Yeah, he would agree with you. Like, he would agree. Like, that was the one thing that I found refreshing about that conversation, was that he was so blunt and honest about, hey, listen, I'm not happy being a 300 singles hitter. Now, I also wonder, like, is there a difference in opinion between what the organization wants and what Trea Turner wants? That's something that really, talk about threading the needle. Can you make both happy? Can the team be happy with his production and he be happy with his own production, and have something that's not what either one wants, right? You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a curious thing too, because you hear the manager say what he says, and then you hear Turner say he's not happy, he's doing it, and I'd like to achieve it, but I really want to be a complete player too. And you wonder, is there a disconnect there a little bit?
Yeah.
And that begs a question about what we've wondered about the start of the season, about something seems a little bit off. And is there a disconnect between players and the organization on philosophy?
I'm glad that you got there, because I kind of made a mental note to come back to that. We talk about, like, is Rob getting the message home to these players? We talk a lot about the energy, and are they focused, and are they getting the most out of this team as a staff? This would be the first time where we would have evidence of, not that there's not a buy-in, or not that there's not that there's like friction in terms of like, well, I don't respect you. I'm not saying that, but just like a fundamental approach standpoint. Like, we want you to be this, you want to be this. Is there a little bit of a disconnect? And is that healthy? It could be healthy. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing, but maybe this is a situation where they're not totally on the same page. Just to kind of bring the point home and go back to Ben Revere, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't totally making this up. I texted Kyle Scott yesterday. He's an anti-Rob Thompson. He goes, "This team plays like their manager, totally lifeless." And I said, okay. Yeah. I said, well, maybe. And then I texted him back, imagine if the guy at shortstop right now, who's making $300 million, could throw a baseball consistently and not put up Ben Revere numbers. That was my text back to him. And just to kind of give you what that means, if you're not familiar with Ben Revere's game, in parts of 3 seasons with the Phillies, Ben Revere hit 303. Man, I'll tell you what, though, 363 slugging percentage. And right now, Trea Turner this season has a 367 slugging percentage. Ben Revere had 389 hits with the Phillies. 3 of them were home runs. 35 of them were doubles.
The slap hit. But you know what? So here's the difference, Bob, right? Like, back then, a slap hitter at the top of your lineup was what you had. Like, every team kind of had that guy, right? Because you wanted a fast, speedy guy who just gets on base, can steal bases, and potentially score runs. How many runs did Ben Revere score?
Ben Revere scored, let's see, in 8 years, he scored 400 runs. With the Phillies, he scored 157 runs.
Okay. I mean, they didn't have a lot behind him when he was
played
here.
335 games. So he played roughly 2 full seasons worth of games with the Phillies.
Yeah. So they didn't have the production behind him that Trea
they were not. I mean, you're talking about the 13 Phillies. That was can they do it? Like,
yeah,
they possibly win with this group. And then they had him 14 and 15 where it was clearly over. Now, that all being said, and like, you go, well, what's wrong with hitting 300? There's nothing wrong with hitting 300. And I always talk about OPS. Like, I'll say OPS 8 times a show, but I'll just take that a step further and give it to you a different way. Like 694 OPS, like, okay. OPS plus 94. I mean, he was below league average offensively as a 300 hitter. That's the problem with being a 300 hitter who can't drive the ball or draw walks or do anything of consequence. That's the problem.
Right.
And if you're going to steal 60 bases and offset that a little bit, then maybe it doesn't show up in those numbers. But he's not doing that either, because they don't do that.
Well, what would you be okay with? At what point, like, what does his OPS need to be? And you sit there and go, you could do this 300 thing and the 380 on base. What does your OPS
is that
need
money
to be?
aside and just like reality of what we're looking at? Or do I take into account what would I like for what does my $30 million this season get me?
Reality. Like, I mean, because in all honesty, like, we can always complain about the money, but it's not our money. We're not paying him. Yes, he needs to be better for his contract, but I think that's a different way of analyzing a player.
If Trea Turner could hit 280 and his on-base percentage be, I don't care if it's 280, get 270 versus 290. It doesn't matter. If Trea Turner's on-base percentage was in the 350s, I could live with that if he's slugging somewhere north of 450. Yeah. Like, I need him to have an OPS over 800. Like,
right. Okay. That's fair. And I agree with you. I think that's 100% fair. So yeah, this is that he's gone too far the other way. In other words,
yeah,
he's gone too far in and maybe it will come back, right? Maybe you need 150, 200 at bats doing it this way to sit there and go, okay, now I know I can lean on this and then attack when it gets warmer. The weather starts heating up and start attacking balls a little bit differently in some at bats. We'll see. But yeah, currently that was the big story to me this weekend. That was more than anything else. And I kind of stumbled into it. I was just thinking about, it was almost going to be like a notey kind of thing. Like, hey, how do you feel about having all these hits? Is this even, I didn't even think it was its own story, to be honest with you. And then it turned into one based on the responses I got from those guys. So that was to me the most interesting thing from this weekend down at the ballpark.
Bryce Harper, 2 hits yesterday, finally homers. It's 6th of the year. Got off to a good start. Did not have great at bats late in the game. Is it coming? Is he close? What's the sense there?
I feel it's coming because, like, it's on Saturday. He didn't have a good game production wise Saturday, but I did feel like he stung some balls on Saturday. I saw he hit a hard fly out to right field. He had one out to, I think it was to left center as well. And I sat there and said, those were good swings. Like, he's didn't get any results on it, but those were at least some good swings. So yesterday, to get the home run and get 2 hits, right? It's okay. It's coming. Yeah. The at bat in the 9th inning was not a good one when he strikes out looking. The at bat in the 10th inning, he doesn't come through there when you just need, you need a base runner at that point. You're trying to pick up 2 runs. So just get on base, let things happen, like, pass the bat. We saw that happen when they had 5 hits in a row off of Brandon Pfaadt the other night, right? It was, and then they had 5 hits in a row in the 9th inning with 2 outs yesterday, right? So, those things happen. Just pass the bat a little bit. And I think Bryce sometimes feels like, I think if there's a flaw to him, I think sometimes he feels like he has to do it all himself and not play the pass the baton game.
Right.
And if he did that a little bit more, I mean, you could be a superhero every once in a while. That's fine. But if you could pass the baton a little bit, sometimes it might benefit the team more. But I do think it's coming. There's a guy I'm not worried about on the Phillies. It's Bryce Harper.
Always making an excuse for Bryce. Bryce gets a free pass. That's what that's out there. That's a sentiment. It's an interesting one. They have not won a championship. And baseball to me is different than evaluating a quarterback. But man, I'm getting that a lot. I don't know if you guys down there is like the beat writers are getting it, but it's like, you're making excuses for Bryce again. Bryce always gets the pass. Bryce's OPS, by the way, is like 60 points higher than Trea Turner's right now, and he's hitting 34. Yeah,
I don't necessarily think he should deserve a pass all the time, but I do think you have to put what his production is in context, right? He's going to have stretches where he's not playing well, and we could sit there and say, hey, Bryce Harper's not playing well right now. The last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he's not been good. But at the same time, know that who the player is and say, yeah, this guy is going to come around. Now, if we're 2 months from now and he's still doing this, I think we have a whole different conversation.
Right.
But at the same time, right now, it's fine. Like he'll be okay. I believe he'll be okay. I could be wrong, but I think he'll be fine.
I got two more things for you here. And then let me know where you want to go from there. Let's just quickly talk about Brandon Marsh. He comes back this weekend off of his hamstring injury, and he has a multi-hit game Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
we can all talk about that's his first hit since March and do that whole thing. Did you think it was interesting that they played him on Saturday night as soon as he was back and, they took the bat out of Rojas? I cannot believe I'm saying that. They're taking the bat out of smoking hot Johan Rojas's hands. This is what we're going to see, right? Marsh he's going to get the immediate ability to take on right-handers. Is that not right?
Yeah, it is right, but I don't necessarily know how often. So, in other words, you look at this Tampa series coming up, they're going to face 3 righties. Do I think Marsh is going to start all 3 games? I don't. I think Rojas will get 1. But I think you're probably looking at 2 out of 3 is Marsh.
So I guess let me ask it to you this way. Do you think that they viewed his injury and then his rehab stint as the hard reset? Like, we're almost willing to overlook whatever the hell happened the first 3 weeks, and we're going to start over with the understanding that, hey, you've got to do it. Like, that happened and we need more out of you, but we're going to give you the chance to play with some regularity as opposed to just saying, well, you were so bad, you've now lost your chance.
Yeah, but I also think there's going to be a short leash on that, right? Like, I don't think he's going to get a run for about 5
I thought it was important
weeks.
that he came up and had instantly a multi-hit game.
Yeah.
I think he needed that.
Yeah, for sure. He for sure needed it. But I still think it was notable that yesterday, obviously Kepler's been hot, so you go to Kepler as the pinch hitter, but that they then kept Marsh on the bench once the game was tied and put Kepler in center field, a position he hasn't played in 4 years or 3.5 years, whatever it is. And it's like, wow, is Brandon Marsh the last guy on the bench in this case? Not counting the backup catcher. And I think maybe, and that maybe is a thing that he's not going to be relied on as the automatic sub for Johan Rojas when you pinch hit for Rojas. It's not going to necessarily be Brandon Marsh.
All right, and then the other thing I wanted to talk about, and had we recorded this on Saturday, I would have led with this. I'm going to inject some of the fan reaction in this, and I'm going to inject some of my own opinion in this. And so I will say I'm blending what I'm bringing here together. Let me get this straight. Rojas makes the base running mistake on Thursday night. On Friday, he is not in the starting lineup. He is hitting over 300 for this team. Rob says it has nothing to do with what happened in the previous game. We had briefly talked about what was going on here, and you're like, I don't think it was that either. And you had mentioned like they probably wanted to get Cal Stevenson some at-bats before they sent him back down over the weekend. My reaction to that is, who gives a shit about Cal Stevenson getting at-bats? Not who gives a shit about Cal Stevenson. I'm sure he's a delightful human being. But who cares about Cal Stevenson getting at-bats before he gets sent back down? What are we doing? And your response was what? Go ahead.
So I think that it's more of it sends a message to players, and maybe not the star players, Bob. Maybe not the Bryce Harpers, Trey Turners, Kyle Schwarbers. Like I make those guys, probably it doesn't really resonate with them. But every team's got to have a handful of guys, at least a handful of guys over the course of a season that are two-way players that end up playing in AAA and end up playing on the major league level. And you want there to be a message that when you come up here, we're going to give you a chance. Not a big chance. You're not going to get, this is a veteran team. It's trying to win a world championship, but we are going to give you an opportunity. And so Cal Stevenson was up for a couple weeks, didn't really get an opportunity to really start. I think he only started, that was only the second game he started in the time that Marsh was out. And they knew they were sending him back down because Marsh was coming back up. So I think it was a hat tip. Thanks, Cal. See you later. If you come back later this year, here's one start, a couple of at-bats. Look, does that necessarily mean it's the right way to go about it? If you're trying to win an individual game in a vacuum, probably not. But I think if you're looking for, the feeling that players have when they come into your clubhouse, does it benefit them? I think it does. I think it makes guys that come up not feel like they are kept at arm's length. I think it makes them feel like they are part of the organization. So that's the response I would give you.
I think that's an entirely I hate that you gave me that response because I think it's entirely fair. And I think from a culture standpoint, it's probably a net positive. And you want guys to feel like they're part of the thing. And it's a good way of doing business and treating your players and within the organization correctly. Probably give some guys at AAA a little juice. They'll, you have guys that'll come up and they're going to contribute and they're going to factor in this thing. And it all makes all the sense in the world. But when you see the lineup that night and then you watch a game play out the way it doesn't, and granted they won the game, but you just go, what are we doing? Why? Yeah. And I think that why I was doubly annoyed in the moment is because like, I'm not the Rojas guy, but I'm like, well, if this guy's playing so well and everyone's got, Rojas fever, then let him play out there. Like, let's do it. Get him out there. Why are we sitting him?
Well, so here's the other thing to throw out there.
And do you really believe that it had nothing to do with what happened?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I really do believe, Rob, and I believe it's what I just said. So this is the one thing I wanted to throw out is Rob didn't give the answer that I gave. Like if Rob gave the answer that I gave, I think people would probably be more accepting of it.
That'd be a great answer. You'd go like, oh, okay.
But that's not the answer.
You don't understand that these guys aren't robots. Like this is how a major league system that's quality, that treats its employees the correct way works. And I promise you, it's a good thing for us.
Yeah, but that's not what he said. What Rob said was that Rojas was feeling a little sore.
Yeah,
he had body soreness and needed a couple days to recover after playing whatever it was, like 10 games in a row or however many games in a row he ended up playing. And we kind of scratched our head at that. Like, Rojas is complaining about being sore. I mean, he's 24. And he's played 8 straight games or whatever it was. And then it was compounded by later in the game that Rojas comes into the game. Well, how sore is he that you need to sit him for a couple of days when he could come into the game and play and run around center field and slide around the bases? Like, I didn't buy that a little bit. I didn't buy the excuse that Rob gave. But I also felt like it had nothing to do, and I know everybody kind of turned it into this because of the mistake that was made on the bases. Like that, I don't think it had anything to do with that. Do I think there was a conversation about that? I do. In fact, I'm pretty confident there was a conversation about that, but I don't think he was taken out of the lineup because of that.
I know that Rob will go to great lengths to protect players. He is not somebody that's going to come out and go after a guy in a press conference. And I don't think, generally speaking, that in 2025, today's modern athlete, I don't think most of them are going to receive that well. And I don't think it's going to have a positive impact. As a fan, you may be frustrated by what's going on. You want the manager to come in and be more honest, maybe be a little bit more critical of the players. I do wonder, though, with this team, sometimes we've talked about this numerous different ways. Does this team have the juice? Do they have a fire lit under their ass? Like, sometimes I do wish there was maybe a little bit more transparency when guys aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they've had a message delivered to them 1 or 2 times and still seemingly hasn't landed. Maybe it'd be nice if we had a little bit more of that from the manager. It's not like they've won a bunch of championships doing it their way. Sorry, as time goes on and the disappointments add up, it's fair to be critical of what's going on. I wouldn't bring this stuff up the way that I am in 2025. Had it been 2023, I'd be like, hey, you gotta let Rob cook. This is the way to do it. I don't want him to come out and say, like, I think this guy's an idiot. We're benching him. I never want to see it again. It's a disgrace. That's not going to work. But could you be like, look, maybe that wasn't great. Maybe we have to go about it differently to land a message.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you. Like Rob can be a little bit more forthcoming, which is harkening back to what we said about Turner. When he answered the question that he answered it, the way he answered it, we were all flabbergasted because that was the most forthcoming Rob ever is about something. Like it really kind of surprised a lot of people. So more of that, please, Rob Thompson, if you're listening in.
I have about 5 minutes left. The last thing I wanted to touch on was Ranger Suarez's day yesterday. I am not nearly ready to make any conclusion about Ranger Suarez and what he's going to be for this team this season. It was one start. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I will note that he comes out, and you said it earlier, from the windup good, gets into the stretch, some problems. Strikes out 4 of his first 6 batters over the first 2 innings, looked very sharp, and then things kind of came unglued in the 3rd inning. He rebounds a little bit, and then it kind of comes unglued a second time. Any big takeaway from what you saw from him yesterday?
No, it's hard. It's hard to really assess after one start. Like, it really is. I mean, you know, it's not easy to go from facing minor leaguers to then come up and make the same mistakes against major league pitching and think you can get away, or major league batters and think you can get away with it, right? So if there was something that was not right with him, and pitch wise, I think he'll figure it out. I think he'll get it right. He's not going to be a guy that gets lit up game in, game out unless the injury is not healed. Let's see how it looks over the next couple of starts and reassess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was what was the name? Hampson. That was the one. He walked
Hampson
in the third inning. I'm like, oh, come on, dude.
Yeah, I know. 180 hitter, and he walked him. Couple of quick hitters for you, Bob. Is Max Kepler better than we thought?
Probably. I don't think that I ever thought that Max Kepler stunk.
Right.
I just wish that he was right-handed.
Yeah. All right. So then maybe the question is he a better fit than we thought?
Maybe. I need to see him hit left-handed pitching a little bit more consistently. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, I know he had the home run the other night, but in general, he hasn't been good against lefties this year. So, but yeah, I mean, he's a quality baseball player and he's got some pop like that. Yeah. He's going to help them. So is he a better fit than we thought? Maybe, because I think that it was almost dismissive. Like, not right-handed. What are we doing? Yeah. You see that he obviously has an impact on this team.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm coming around on that decision. I was critical of it all off season, and now I'm starting to think maybe I guess wrong.
The point there too is, did the equivalent player exist that hit right? I mean, if it's get a guy that can hit right-handed pitching or get nobody, then go get the guy that can hit right-handed pitching.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's fair. Aaron Nola pitching with a stiff neck and goes 6 scoreless against the Diamondbacks. Impressed?
Yeah, I think that there's a clip of me saying something 2 weeks ago that was like he's going to have 5 or 6 starts where he doesn't look good. He's going to roll 3 straight starts together where he looks like Cy Young, and then everyone's going to. You remember me saying this, right? Yeah, and then everyone's going to say Aaron Nola's fully back, and then he's going to get the ball in his next start, and he's going to give up 4 runs in 5 innings, and we're going to say what's wrong with Aaron Nola, and then he's going to put together 3 really good starts, and at the end of the season, he's going to throw 190 innings and have a 3.8 ERA, and it's what it's going to be. But yeah, it looked good the other night. I think that we now know that we're not in for the disaster Nola season. He looks good.
Yeah, he does, and against good teams too. It's not like he's doing this against the Marlins. He did this against a couple of good offenses in the Cubs and the Diamondbacks. Should we be talking more about Kyle Schwarber's on base streak? It's up to 40 games now. Is it? I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, but it's up to 40 games now that he's reached base in a row.
Yeah, I think he's on pace for 67 home runs right now. So if you can get on base like that and also have that type of pop, yeah,
I think we should. I think it's something to start looking at.
The Phillies are going to make an all-star team this year.
Right now he's the leader in the clubhouse for me for the Phillies. I mean, through the first month of the season, I think it's Schwarber, right?
Do they have any other all-stars right now?
Luzardo, yeah. But I mean, I don't know.
Stott's like,
not quite.
Not quite. Bryson Stott like he's an all-star though in terms of how they use him. So
we'll see as time goes on here. Last thing, two last thing. One, it's a comment from a viewer, and then it ties to something I wanted to ask you about. Andrew Painter. I'm going up, by the way. I'm going up to Lehigh on Thursday to watch him pitch. They bypassed AA, went right to AAA, expediting his arrival. You think there, Bob?
Feels more June-ish than July-ish if everything tracks, right?
Yeah, you got to remember, my prediction, and I've been good with predictions so far this year. My prediction has been all along he's going to debut in Miami because he's a Florida kid, and they play the Marlins in Miami Father's Day week, the 16th to the 19th, somewhere in there. I think that's when Andrew Painter debuts for the Phillies.
That feels right. Does Andrew Painter stick around in AAA and make 8 weeks worth of starts and burn his innings up down there? I don't think so.
No, I think it's 6 starts and then he's up, and that's it. And then this one from Tyler DeMuro is kind of funny. He says, "Can Bohm get a phantom injury so they can bring up Otto Kemp?" That kid has been killing the ball.
I don't know what to make of it. My initial thing is always guys get hot at AAA and who cares, and you can't really put too much stock in it. He has been on an absolute torrid stretch. And he's a guy that the Phillies, you mentioned it a few weeks ago. Dave Dombrowski at the end of the season press conference last year brought up Otto Kemp's name. This is a guy that's been on the radar a little bit for them to begin with. Then he's doing what he's doing right now. You talk about throwing Cal Stevenson in a bat or a game before you send him down, doing right to message to guys that you're going to get a chance here. What more does this guy have to do? I think we've reached that point. What more does this guy have to do to get a shakeup here?
Yeah, and the question is though, where does he go? Right? Like where do you put him? Where
and
does
for who? Because Wilson, that's a guy that you like enough that I don't think you just discard because of Otto Kemp, because you don't know what it looks like when he gets up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not wishing for an Alec Boehm injury or anything, but
yeah, I do think
Alec Boehm yesterday. I know he's knocking on the door at 2:30 now. I just can't, man. Like, I just can't do it. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Hit the ball on the fence.
Yeah. My one last thing from around the league, the injuries, man, are mounting in this sport. Like, it is so crazy how many guys are getting hurt.
Yep.
You had Tristan Casas for the Red Sox.
That's a bad one.
That's a blow to them.
That was the patella tendon, right?
Yeah. He's out for the year.
Kobe Dean injury.
Yeah, out for the year. Shota Imanaga is now out of it, but the Cubs, they just get their rotations getting brutalized with
it. Has not been a good stretch for the Cubs here.
Yeah, the Yankees, Anthony Volpe, he's out now with an injury. He's got to get an MRI on his shoulder. Jesse Winker is headed for the IL for the Mets. And yet the Phillies just continue to stay healthy. Is there something that does somebody really need to look into what the Phillies do for training purposes? Like, they have done a remarkable job of keeping guys healthy for the most part on this.
Hey, maybe they have something where you go, why was it Max Kepler in the lineup yesterday? What the hell was that? Maybe it's those decisions add up. I don't know. I mean, it's
crazy, right? Like, we talk about all these injuries in baseball every year, and we never really look at Phillies guys being out long term. Like,
they've been very fortunate.
Is it fortune, or is it they figured something out with that?
I think that maybe they do things and they incorporate practices that that allow them to have a chance to be more successful. But I think at some point it does come down to, like, do you think that Tristan Casas got hurt the other night because of malpractice or something that the Red Sox didn't do? I doubt it, So
yeah, that's more of a fluke injury than anything else. No, but it's just when you see
your point, you're right. That's probably a hammer to go chase down. I'm not that they're going to give you the
no, they're not
sauce or anything like that.
But. No, they're not. But when you talk about like hamstring injuries or oblique injuries and things like that, I mean that's a lot of trainer stuff, right?
Sure.
I mean, for sure. So interesting. I know you got to run, so let's wrap it up here. Don't forget, you can subscribe to Phightin Words on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast. But the best place, of course, to watch us live when we come onto the show is here on YouTube. So subscribe to Phightin Words on YouTube. Click that thumbs up, ring the bell. Make sure you don't miss a show. If you're listening in the podcast feed, you want to follow us on YouTube, just go to youtube.com/@Phightin Words. I will leave you with this, because I've been on a heater with the predictions. Because we'll be back on Friday to break down the Tampa Bay Rays series. Phillies take 2 of 3 at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, which, by the way, Bob, I've been to a few times. What a terrible locale for a major
I don't know, man. 2 out of 3 are for the Phillies. You're back in on the Phillies. I'm a little worried about this one. The Rays aren't a terrible baseball team, and I feel like the Phillies have a tendency to get lulled to sleep in Florida. So
I have a feeling that the lull's coming in Cleveland.
Okay.
That's where I think that they might lose 2 out of 3. But I think that the matchups in Tampa favor the Phillies. 3 right-handed pitchers, banjo ballpark. Like, I think that the Phillies are going to have a good 3 games down there. So that's it. Anyway, so for Bob, I'm Anthony. Thanks for listening to Phightin Words. We will see you on Friday.